People who give job interviews, what are some subtle red flags that say this person won't be a good hire? When asked about their experience with the topic, they stick to reciting textbook definitions of terminology rather than demonstrating any understanding of how to apply it. Had one person who was literally forwarding our questions into ChatGPT and then reciting rambling answers that provided definitions of keywords in our questions rather than actually answering the question. Like we'd ask, what's something a previous employer or educator has recognized you for? And they'd answer, examples of things that an employer might recognize an employee for are, during COVID, I was doing remote interviews and the person didn't turn on their camera. They were quite obviously Googling answers to the questions. I had another team where they interviewed someone who I guess didn't expect the camera to be on. Someone off-screen was answering the questions and they were trying to lip-sync in real time. El Mayo. I can absolutely see this as a Fry and Laurie sketch, I guess. Treating the person interviewing you as an idiot is a fair answer to OP's question. I think it's likely more a case of them being an idiot. You'd have better odds just having the other person do the interview for you, than swapping yourself in on the first day and hoping nobody notices. Honestly, even without the remote work element, I think I've worked somewhere where you probably could have gotten away with it, as long as you're the same race and gender as the person who cosplayed you. I recently did a round of video interviews for a software dev role, and this was disturbingly common and not as blatant. There seems to be a strategy that more than one of them had practiced. Reply to the question with meaningless things like, thank you, that's an excellent question, and rephrasing the question to buy time while they enter it in ChatGPT. Give the ChatGPT answer, paraphrased and adapted to the asked question. Thing is, no matter how well they do that, and some were pretty seamless about it, it's still obviously a generic answer, and you can see their eyes reading the other screen. I wonder how often this works. Probably a lot more than you'd expect with recruiters or management types. That's an interview strategy I was taught long before ChatGPT existed. It gives you breathing room to consider your answer without awkward silence, plus rephrasing the question helps prevent miscommunication. How do you tell the difference between people buying time for ChatGPT versus people buying time for their own brain? I interviewed this lady and she brought up how she had an issue with an old coworker, and at the end of it she said the coworker died of cancer. Of course I said, "Oh, I'm sorry," or something similar, and she responds with, "She got what she deserved." "Yeah, no thank you." OP said subtle. That's a just yell next until they leave moment. I had a coworker who died of cancer several years ago. She was one of the most hateful people I've ever worked with, and everybody hated her, and that was before the diagnosis. Then she got her diagnosis, and everybody still hated her, but they were much more closeted about it. It got brought up in individual conversations, rather than someone making an offhand comment about her in a meeting she wasn't present for. Then she passed from the cancer, and everybody clammed up immediately. I made an offhand comment to a coworker about not having to deal with a shit attitude out of whoever had taken over the lady's job function, and you would have thought I'd murdered someone in cold blood based on the coworker's reaction. She died of cancer. You cannot say bad things about her like that. My response was basically, I don't wish that on anyone, and it's horrible what she went through. Nobody deserves that. But she was a hateful asshole well before the diagnosis, and I'm not going to pretend she wasn't simply just because she had a totally unrelated horrible thing happen to her. Hey man, did you already subscribe on me? You don't? Subscribe and press like faster. I once interviewed someone who told me she technically wasn't allowed to be in the building because someone on another floor had a restraining order against her. Positives, honesty, negatives, judgment. I was interviewing someone who had just left a position at our sister institution. Me, why did you leave position X? Interviewed, oh, I was fired for harassment. Me, what? Interviewee, oh, don't worry, just regular harassment, not sexual harassment. My favorite story of red flags was when I screened resumes for a restaurant. A couple walked in dirty, disheveled, and reeking of weed, this is long before it was legal, and asked for applications. They were paper then. They popped at the bar to fill them out, and the woman goes, babe, what's my zip code? I'm so high right now. Then about 5 minutes later, as they're like handing the applications to me, the guy goes, hey, are we getting interviewed now? I got kids in the car. The woman interrupted. They're fine, they're in car seats. I was horrified. It was January. Ran the papers up to the owner in her office, repeated both comments. She looks outside, jots down the plate number, and called the local cops. When the cops got there, the two of them were trying to get free beers from the bar manager. I'm not sure what happened from there. When I clocked out, the cops had them outside and CPS was involved. So yeah, don't come to apply for a job / have an interview high, smelling and begging for booze while your toddlers wait in the car in the cold. Good shit on you all for calling the cops. You all might have been the thing that made the difference for those children. It's a horrific story, no doubt, but OP was asking about subtle red flags. I'd just like to point out that call the cops because they showed up drunk and high while leaving their kids in the car isn't a subtle red flag. It isn't even red flag, aka a warning of danger. It's a straight call the cops situation. I was hiring someone with web development skills. Asked a candidate to tell me about a time they encountered a critical error and how they fixed it. Their response, well, I was on our website and noticed some information was out of date, a critical error, so I told the web development team we needed to update that critical error. Would have been a wonderful answer for a QA role. I went on a job interview for a tech support role and I mentioned I had signed up for a free trial of the software and had tried it out. They asked me what I thought, and I criticized a couple things I had found. A week later, I was accepting a job offer, and 5 months after that, they moved me from tech support to QA. When interviewing people, I always try to find a way to subtly disagree or challenge one of their positions, whether I really disagree or not. And their reactions mostly fall in 3 categories. They agree with me, take it as a learning opportunity, green flag. They confidently back up their claim with supporting statements, very green flag. They get defensive territorial that I've challenged them, red flag. This is a good one. So many in this thread of subtle red flags are like, he came to my mother's funeral and insulted me during the eulogy. Challenging a position politely and seeing a response is fascinating, because so many people have trouble with this one. I'd say 1 can also be a red flag, because some people will agree with anything you say to get the job, even if they don't agree. I have friends like this who will confidently state a position. Then if I give a reason for disagreeing, they'll immediately change their position, or worse, claim they were actually agreeing with you in the first place. If I've taken a position, there's usually a reason for it. But I'm always happy to look at evidence that I'm wrong, because the older I get, the less confident I am in my hit percentage. I had a dude just straight up say he doesn't like black people during his interview. I always wonder when people say things like this if they really are just an awful person, or if they are going to interviews while on unemployment and hope to not get hired, or want to continue staying home at their parents' house. Spouse supporting them. Because come on. They probably assume you agree with their fucked up views because you happen to be the same race. I've had a shocking amount of encounters with white tradesmen who have dropped the N-word with a hard R on the job site. It's usually the older trades guys who are sexist, homophobic, racist, etc. I am truly baffled by the number of white men that think that just because I am a middle-aged white guy, that I am some sort of safe space for their misogyny, racism, bigotry. This has been a major sticking point for me for a long time now. I'm 48, white, but live in a very diverse area, northern NJ, just over the bridge from NYC. It bothers me so much when a white guy assumes I have some racist notions, to the point where I become extremely sensitive to it. Recently, I was at an NYC indoor track meet, and a new parent to my daughter's track club murmurs to me, "Geez, a lot of blacks here, huh?" I just turned and glared at him, and he said nothing else. To be fair, I don't even know where he was going with that, but it already triggered my annoyance. Other side of that token, I've shared this assumption of bigotry issue with friends and coworkers who weren't white, and have been honestly surprised to learn how many people aren't aware this is a thing. My daughter's friend's mother, who is black, looked so hurt when I told her, as if she were tallying how many secret racists there are out there. It broke my heart. I still think about that, and I'm not sure if I regret telling her. Was giving an interview, maybe 20 minutes long. The lady being interviewed asked if she could go outside and smoke a cigarette. Rips vape inside during the interview like a civilized person. I work in politics and hire a lot of entry-level positions. With some firms, the only qualification is a pulse. In the screening call, pre-interview, I ask them about an issue that they care about. This is to first weed out anyone that doesn't have a clue what is going on, and also to weed out someone on the other side of the aisle. It very much is a partisan position. One person last year slipped up and somehow passed the screening call. In our office, there were cardboard cutouts of 3 prominent political figures. 2 presidents and a VP, all household names at this point. He got to the office, saw the cardboard cutouts, and asked who they were. A friend of mine was in law school and had a disastrous interview for a summer position. There was more to it, but you just reminded me of my favorite detail. The senior lawyer he was interviewing with was going over my friend's resume and asked him about the listed experience of working on a congressional campaign, someone running for the US House. He answered the question and threw in, unfortunately, the lesser candidate won at the end. The interviewer said, "Really? I happen to be good friends with the winning candidate," and then pointed to the picture on the shelf behind him with the 2 of them at some event. The photo had been plainly visible if only my friend had noticed it. The whole story was fucking hilarious with the other details about how my friend managed to step on his own dick in the interview. It was painful at the time to go through, but at least he was able to spin a great tale out of it. I can teach anything but giving a damn. If your interview doesn't show you give a damn, it was a waste. Ask questions, people, like you are sincerely trying to determine what the role is and entails. I will say, I think some job descriptions do an abysmal job of describing the full scope of the role. I landed an interview for a position that I thought I was at least minimally qualified for based on the job description. But in the interview, they were asking me questions about my experience and high-level skills mentioned nowhere in the description for a fairly entry-level position. It was immediately evident to me that I was completely unqualified, and I cried for an hour after it was over because of how mortified I was at my horrible performance. A guy I know that works in the IT industry told me when a girl he interviewed for a junior developer job had a complete meltdown and completely froze. The interview ended awkwardly, and that was that. A couple days later, the girl sent an email explaining she had issues with anxiety and asked for a second chance. Of course, my friend gave her that chance, she nailed it and got hired. She now works as a product owner after 5 years with the company. Amazing! Good on your friend to give her a second chance. The world needs more people like your friend. Due to the nature of roles I interview for, I often get people with PhDs and they split into 2 categories. I've done my homework and I'm ready to answer any question. Good. And I am better than this job and you will give it to me, but I'll join the charade. Bad, like really fucking bad. Also, top tip. If you apply for an information specialist role, don't fudge your own information. We will do due diligence and we will understand whether you are trying to big yourself up, regardless of your background/nationality. I'm a mechanical engineer and I have to interview candidates from time to time. In general, I give them a really simple technical question that I would expect a high schooler to solve. It's literally going to be things like, calculated the force on this object. The more you deviate away from force equals mass times acceleration, the more I know you are going to be a bad hire. Not only does it show a fundamental misunderstanding of the material at hand, it also shows me that when you don't know the answer, you're prone to taking up meeting time endlessly pointing out true but impossible to solve problems. I had the pleasure of working with a chemist who was amazingly unable to handle basic stoichiometric calculations, like figuring out how many grams of sodium chloride are in 500 millimoles of water at 0.4 molar and such. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe, press like, and comment. Which red flags did you see in interviewers or people you interviewed and they are not good hire for company?